There are hedge fund managers making $1 million an hour. You know, it's crazy, right? It's money everywhere. It's money in everything. I want to help you. Start your business today. Come join my royal family. Subscribe to Casino is the name.
Hey, yo, what's going on right now? You're watching Casino is the Name, and in this video, we're going to talk about gold versus real estate. And it's pretty interesting because for whatever reason, I've had this conversation probably about 10 times over the last week or so. It's pretty interesting. I'm not really sure what the what's happening in as far as in the space of gold or the conversation about real estate. But let's compare gold versus real estate. First of all, one of my people sent me a video from Moneybag Yo saying that, you know, he had a bunch of money around and he had some gold bars, and he said, buy gold, don't buy real estate. It's a better investment. It's better than real estate. And, you know, they were like, hey, you know, I know what your take is on this. You know, what do you think about what he's saying, right? And I am honestly not sure because, of course, I'm going to be pro real estate, all right? I'm an accountant, by the way. I'm an accountant. And I don't know what his stance is on why he's saying buy gold instead of real estate. I'll give you my reasons why I believe real estate is a hands down versus gold. Now, of course, it's going to depend on what kind of real estate you buy, right? But let's say both of these two different asset categories are a hedge against inflation, okay? So with more money in circulation, and well, with the weaker dollar, of course, the gold gets stronger, right? Because the dollar's it's just getting weaker with all of the printing that's going on. And at the same time, with a lot of money in circulation, everybody now has a lot of money, and it drives housing prices up. But of course, housing has other things that create a rise or decrease in the housing market, such as interest rates and things like that. So they have some other issues to like work through to decide if like this is necessarily a good purchase when it comes to real estate. But with all things created equal, let's say you had $300,000. Now, that's the other part about gold. You can buy gold in much smaller amounts, right? You can buy gold for $300. You can buy a piece of gold, you know. $1,000, you can buy a piece of gold. It's very difficult to buy real estate for $300, $500. Okay, so gold wins if you're looking at buying small amounts of something. But if let's say we're gonna spend $300,000, okay, $300,000 in gold, you get you some gold bars, you spend $300,000. You take $300,000 and you buy some real estate, okay? Meaning that you have no mortgage now. You bought you a house for $300,000, okay? Let's just say you bought one house for $300,000. Okay, so you buy this house for $300,000. You don't need to live there. You're gonna buy it as an investment vehicle, just like you're buying gold as an investment vehicle. Now, the difference between the two is, one, the major difference between the two is gold does not pay you for owning it. It does not pay you. You own the real estate. Let's say you rent the place out for $1,500 a month. You should easily be able to rent a $300,000 house out for $1,500 a month. Rent the house for $1,500 a month. Let's say $500 of that goes towards property taxes, maintenance, and insurance, right? So storing money up for any kind of maintenance issues that might come up in the future. But $500 of that goes just towards that. That means that you're netting $1,000. Now, why are you netting $1,000? You're netting $1,000 because you have no mortgage. See, that's the other part. When people think about gold versus real estate, and you say, okay, well, you had $300,000 in gold or $300,000 in real estate. Which one do you choose? Most people, for whatever reason, they like, well, I don't have to pay. I don't have to keep paying on a mortgage on the $300,000 in gold. So you need to remember that you've already paid the house off. If you have $300,000 in cash, that's the only way to buy gold is like cash, right? You're not getting loans to really go buy cash. Like banks ain't really doing that. You can get a loan to go buy a $300,000 house, but in this situation, we're comparing cash to cash as a store of value, as an investment. So you actually have to take $300,000 and go buy a $300,000 house. So there is no mortgage. You're not putting a down payment down on a $300,000 house and still having to pay mortgage. There's no interest rates involved. You're taking $300,000 and either buying cash and buying gold, and $300,000 of cash and buying a house that's worth $300,000. Okay, so that's the only way to really compare this, because I think that's been an issue with people being able to fully understand this scenario, right? So the house is paid off. So now you're renting for $1,500 a month. You're cash flowing $1,000 a month. $1,000 a month times 12 months is $12,000. 10 years, that's $120,000. Okay? That's in cash flow in 10 years. In 20 years, that's $240,000. Okay? In 20 years, that's $240,000. Now, you can say, well, the gold would have appreciated, well, has the possibility of maybe appreciating from $200,000 to $400,000. And if you're saying, going from spending, I'm sorry, I said 200,000, 400. I meant 300,000. You spent $300,000, and now in 20 years, let's say the gold is worth 500,000. Okay. Now this is the other part of this. Now, if you spent $300,000 on the house and you cash flow $240,000, yeah, you're like $540,000, and you may be like, yeah, but it's only $40,000 difference. No, it's more than $40,000 difference. Why is it more than $40,000 difference? Because if you're comparing $500,000 in gold over 20 years of it rising to that over 20 years versus $540,000 because you spent $300,000 plus you got $240,000, you're really comparing the profits from the difference. So you went from $300,000 to $500,000, so it's a $200,000 difference. And if you go from that's in gold side, and on the real estate side, if you go from $300,000 to $540,000 because you cash flow $240,000, then the profit would be $240,000. That's on the cash flow side. And the other side, on the gold side, that $200,000 difference is on the appreciation side. But what we have forgotten is two major things. Now, even with that, the gold still possibly comes out ahead. But let's say both of them appreciated, or let's say the appreciation was $240,000 and the cash flow on the house was $240,000. So I mean, the $240,000 on the gold side, let's say it appreciated at $240,000, so it could be equivalent to the cash flow of the gold. I mean, of the house for $240,000. Let's say those things was created equal. So you could say maybe this looks like it balances out. This looks like it's equivalent. It's still two major things that we have to take into account. Two major things that we have to take into account that make real estate a much, much better deal. Okay? Because let's say those things balanced each other out. All right? One thing that we forgot is the house also appreciates. The house also appreciates. So let's say the house also appreciates $200,000. Now, not only do we have a $500,000, we went from $300,000 to $500,000 asset over 20 years, but now we also have to then take into account the $240,000 that we cash flowed. So now we went from $300,000 to $500,000 in appreciation, and then another $240,000 in cash flow. That's $740,000 compared to saying 540 from the goal. Like you got the $300,000 that you spent originally, is the original value, and then they depreciated $240,000. So you're comparing $740,000 to and this is hypothetically, right, to $540,000. Still, now I know it's being hypothetical, so let's go a step further. Okay, let's push this thing all the way out there. Okay, let's make it even better. Let's make this an even better reason why you want to go real estate. Okay, have you guys heard of depreciation? Have you heard of depreciation? Because not only is that $540,000 that you made, well, I'm sorry, that $240,000 in cash flow that you made, does not only does that come into play, but you can depreciate that entire profit to nothing. It's possible to depreciate that money from real estate to pretty much nothing. So you also benefit from, on your taxes, from depreciation. So you can depreciate that asset. So that income that's coming in, you depreciated all of that. So you paid no taxes for the most part on that money that you cash flowed. Now, on the side of, on both of these assets, you only benefit, well, no, that's not true, because real estate has another advantage. But say you spent $300,000 and now that gold is worth $540,000. The only way to get that $240,000 profit from gold is to sell it, right? But when you sell it, you know what you run into that you don't run into with real estate? You run into capital gains, okay? So you're going to get a capital gains tax. Now, let's say you get capital gains tax on $240,000, okay? Because you're going to pay taxes on the profit that you made from selling the gold, which is crazy because you held it for 20 years and you benefited from appreciation, but now you're going to pay a certain percent, a large percent, on the capital gains that you made on the gold. So the capital gains you made on the gold is $240,000, and you may pay, let's just say, let's throw a number out there. Let's say you paid $100,000 in taxes just selling the gold. So now you technically didn't really appreciate. I mean, it really isn't like, oh, I took $300,000, now I'm at $540,000. No, you might have spent $300,000 and now you're at $140,000 in like, $440,000, which is $140,000 in profit, which is still a good profit. But you waited 20 years to do that, when if you had a house and you sold that house for that same amount, so you had spent $300,000, in 20 years you sold it for $540,000, you get no capital gains tax because you held the house for over 2 years. So that's another. So not only did we depreciate the cash flow for the 200 and some thousand, say the 240,000, but then we also got no capital gains tax on $200,000 for the house when we got hit with capital gains tax, and we were not able to benefit from depreciation to reduce our taxable income, and we were also not able to cash flow on the goal. And so you see that now you're comparing maybe $140,000 to, and this is hypothetically, right? But you're comparing like maybe $140,000 to $140,000 profit to $440,000 profit. It doesn't even make sense. Like it's not even close. And it's not even close. And that's still not even going into all of the advantages of having a house or an asset like real estate, because you may not even have to sell the house. You're able to cash out, refinance, and probably pull, you could probably pull 80%, say that house goes up to, so let's say that house, the house is now worth you spent $300,000, and instead of saying the house is worth $540,000, let's say you spent $300,000 and the house is now worth $500,000. So it went up $200,000, right? I'm not even going to try to say that it appreciated as fast as gold or whatever, which it should have still. But let's say it's worth $500,000. You multiply that by 0.8, because you can cash out refinance up to 80% without having to pay PMI, right? So you can pull after 20 years, you can pull $400,000, right? Which is $100,000 over what you spent initially. Still maintain the asset, still cash flow. You won't cash flow as much because you have to pay a mortgage back, but you still have the ability to pull $100,000 out, still maintain the asset, and still make money from the asset, and still benefit from depreciation, and still benefit from any kind of capital. Well, you won't even get any capital gains because you did a cash out refinance. You took a loan. See, a loan, you don't pay any capital gains tax. So you don't even pay a capital gains tax. Selling the gold, you're completely out of the asset. If you sell the gold for $540,000, you would have made $140,000. So you look at cash out refinance, walking away with $100,000 versus walking away with $140,000, but you no longer have the gold asset and you no longer can benefit from any kind of gains in the future. With the real estate, you can cash out refinance for $400,000, take your $300,000 back, so you're really in the cliff of the $300,000. You profited $100,000, which is $40,000 less than our gold example, but you still have the asset, you're still able to cash flow, and you're still able to benefit from future appreciation. So over the next 10 years, that house goes from $500,000 to $600,000 over the next 10 years, or $580,000 or whatever. You still benefit from that appreciation over that period of time. It's not even close. It's not, real estate and gold is not even close. You don't even have the gold left anymore. So I don't know why we're comparing these things, Anyway, just want to come on here. Now, don't get me wrong. Having the goal, I want to be clear, having the goal is still better than let your money sit in a bank doing nothing. Now, gold also goes up and down. So you might buy gold today and it might go down. You might go buy gold tomorrow and it might go skyrocket, because it's based off of how strong the U.S. dollar is. If the U.S. dollar gets really, really strong, then the value of gold gets really, really, goes down. So, it just depends. And, real estate goes up and down as well. So, but you can still, the advantage of real estate is, regardless of whether or not, like, let's say, for instance, my house, when I bought my house was this house here. Okay, so I got two houses, right? My house in Macon, when I bought it, it was $54,000. Right now, it's worth like $157,000. I had it for many years, but I bought it I bought it I bought a cheap house, and it's not going to appreciate as fast as, say, a really, really nice house. So my other house, my current house, or my newest house, I bought it for $233,000 about 7 years ago, a little less, just shy of 7 years ago, and I bought it for $233,000, and it's now worth like $400 and something thousand. I'm well over $200,000 in equity in 7 years. That's appreciation, okay, in 7 years. So my house, I can sell it right now, make $200,000 and pay no capital gains, but of course I still need a place to stay. So, but I can sell it now and benefit from $200,000 with no capital gains in 7 years. So, if I had bought a $300,000 house, my profit would probably be higher than that. Just saying. And that's in 7 years instead of having to say I got to wait 20 years. So imagine what 20 years looks like. But regardless of that, if I'm looking at a return on investment, I can rent my house out for $2,500 a month, right? So if I rent my house out for $2,500 a month, and that's this house. Now, the house in Macon, I think they rent around $1,200 to $1,500 a month or whatever. But the house here, I can rent it for $2,500 a month, okay? So $2,500 a month, and regardless of whether or not the housing market goes down as far as the cost of purchase. So if, like, my house dropped down $100,000 in equity, it wouldn't really matter for me to cash flow because I would still be able to cash flow. It doesn't mean as much as it does to gold. If you lose a certain amount of money on the gold side, like on the depreciation, on the market going down, then it feels like a much different kind of hit than I lost $100,000 in mortgage value in valuation. Both of them, it sucks, right? Nobody wants to lose any money, but if I'm making money, so off of 2,500, let's say I cash flow $1,800 per month. The gold isn't paying me $1,800 per month. In 10 months, it's $18,000. The gold isn't going to do that. The gold is just not going to do that, right? So if we're looking at it like that, I can still benefit from the house and just be able to hold it even longer until the valuations come back up. But you lose $100,000 in gold and you're like, I might need to get out of this before it goes down further. But I digress. Anyway, right now you're watching Casino Is the Name. Like, share, comment.
I was always focused on the money. I started with nothing. I was born to be an entrepreneur. I'm a real estate investor. Had my own trucking authority. Multiple college degrees. Ex-military. I'm an author. Motivational speaker. Not to mention I'm an accountant. But with all the things that I've done, it was government contracts that truly made me rich. There are hedge fund managers making $1 million an hour. You know, it's crazy, right? It's money everywhere. It's money in everything. I want to help you. Start your business today. Come join my royal family. Subscribe to Casino Is the Name.